Welcome, everybody. I want to give you a few minutes to come on, but I wanted you to know that we are on top of it. We're following, as difficult as it was to watch and listen. Our phones have been blowing up like crazy, and I just have to tell you, we're here for you. We're here to clear the air, and we've got Tammy Clark, Kristen Megan, myself, Ron Armstrong, and Senator Tom Barrett's going to be joining us in just a little bit. He actually had some overheating car trouble, had to pull over for his car to cool off a little bit, believe it or not, in this wind. So he's going to join as soon as he comes with us. But let's just get things rolling here. Tammy, why don't you do a couple introductions and let's roll.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I know I had a great time seeing so many of you at the Capitol yesterday. And then here we are today. I was kind of in work mode this afternoon on this blustery cold fall day, and got wind that the governor was going to be coming on while I was in full house cleaning mode today. So I scrambled, threw some water on, and got a hold of Kristen and Tom Barrett, Senator Barrett, and this was kind of thrown together really last minute. So we wanted to, of course, you know us at Stand Up Michigan, we always want to come at you with relevant, timely, accurate information, staying on top of things like this as they are developing and things are changing by the moment. So we just got wind of this about a couple of hours ago. About 3 o'clock today, I think I got the notice that she was coming on live, and boy, did I have to buckle up. I was teasing, Ron and Kristen, that it was about all I could do to not stick a straw in a bottle of wine about 4 o'clock. But here we are. I just have one glass. I promise I'm being good. But I invited Kristen to come on because boy, do we have some PPE issues to talk about. There is so much going on with this entire press release. I mean, it is loaded. We're going to have a civics lesson tonight. We're going to give you a call to action. And some of you have seen the trending hashtag that I started, refuse to obey. I think it's incredibly important that business owners band together, link arm in arm, and absolutely refuse to go along with this. And so there's a lot to cover tonight. So just wanted to, just kind of say hello, lay the groundwork, the foundation of where we're going. And I want to throw it to Kristen. And thank Kristen so much for, I know this Sunday afternoon you're in your Bears sweatshirt, and there wasn't a game. Thank God. I was hoping that there wasn't a Bears game today or we never would have gotten you on live. But thank you for joining us. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to come on. I had heard about this press conference earlier today, and I'm not going to lie, I actually physically became ill. My stomach hurt. My biggest issue with what had happened tonight is not the restrictions that were put into place. While I view them as completely tyrannical, it doesn't surprise me. What really bothers me, and I know you can understand this, Tammy, is the audience and the platform that she's using and abusing to spread such dangerous disinformation. And it's so hard to talk about this without being censored. But you and I both know since 1979, OSHA has instituted the Respiratory Protection Program. And while masks are new, the use of masks and facial coverings are new to a lot of Americans, there has been widespread use of facial coverings in foreign countries for many years. You had the H1n1 outbreak that occurred, and it was from that time period that we had large multidisciplinary case studies that were conducted because of PPE shortages on what worked and what didn't work. And it was revealed countless times that the masks that are ear loop masks, cloth masks, and surgical masks are absolutely not rated to protect you against a virus. And not in just saying that, but they can further the spread. I'm not giving you my opinion. We all know I'm independent. I'm on neither side of the aisle. This is coming from 18 years in my field. I am a health PPE expert as a senior industrial hygienist. And for all the viewers watching, I have tested well over 10,000 masks. And I can tell you hands down, I watched Director Gordon tonight touch his mask 7 times. If you were trained on how to properly utilize a mask and you understood universal precautions, you would know you do not touch your mask. If you can't breathe right or it's in your eyes, you didn't put it on right. And when you touch your mask and you touch the podium and you touch the papers, that cross-contamination occurs. Not to forget self-contamination. And I'll pass it back to you in just a second, but to describe self-contamination, there's a reason that you have to have medical clearance and proper training on how to don, put on, take off, doff the mask. And it's because if you can put it on correctly, but if you remove it incorrectly, it has done you a disservice, because your mask, using it over and over, can cause self-contamination. And we know it can cause strep throat, bacterial pneumonia. This is not my opinion, folks. This is documented throughout 18 years of my career field, which is why when you touch your mask, you have to change it out. And masks like those are only worn 2 hours at a time. So that's where my anger lies, because we're talking about slowing the spread, but the directions that are coming out of MDHHS through Whitmer's hands is increasing the spread.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you look at Robert Gordon, the director, he does not have a health background. He does not have a PPE or respiratory protection background at all. He knows nothing about this. That's why in the first few minutes he was on, he kept doing this, fiddling, moving. And I'm sitting there absolutely in shock. Like, you are telling people to wear masks, yet you know nothing about it clearly. And you are the director of health and human services, and you're giving us the absolute 180-degree opposite directions from a health perspective of what you should be telling us to do. In fact, Dr. Fauci himself acknowledged that we know from the 1918 flu pandemic, people did not die from the flu. What did they die from, Kristen, Megan?
Sorry, I had to unmute there.
That's
They
okay.
actually died from an increase of bacterial infections through the cross and self-contamination. And see, we always say, let's not delete history, no matter how hard it is, because you don't want it to repeat itself. And we have come a long way since the early 1900s, and we are better than this. And I just want to add this real quick. I love the show Grey's Anatomy, and I watched this week's episode. And these shows, I'm guessing, in course, to have the ability to film, they had to wear masks, therefore incorporate the whole COVID narrative. Well, when you saw them work in the infectious disease wards, Tammy, they were wearing PAPRs, powered air purifying respirators.
I saw that, and I have seen, and because that's the exact right thing to do. If you are a healthcare worker and you work in an infectious disease ward, what is COVID-19? It is an infectious disease. If you are working in a COVID-19 ward, you should be wearing a powered air purifying respirator, a hood, and it's called a PAPR, with your own source of breathing air. So you're not circulating it outside air. You need your own internal source of breathing air, so you're not being contaminated. So we're not doing anything correct because, of course, Director Robert Gordon, he has a finance and a global strategy background. And so why are we even listening to these people?
And Tammy, what really angered me was I had to sit there again and listen to her use this platform to spread this disinformation. They went on to continue the narrative that the CDC just came out to clarify it doesn't just protect those around you wearing the mask, but it also protects the wearer. And I looked it up before we came on here. There's no citation of any study. It's just stated. And we don't need to get into the history of the CDC, but let's not forget what the CDC has done and what other health hazards through pharmaceuticals and other things has the CDC not told us.
Can I clarify
one
thing? I just want to bring in one thing. Listening to her today, the first thing that she said was the most important thing we can do, not social distance, not whatever, it is wear the mask. That's the first thing she said.
Yeah.
Number one. Secondly, she said, here's what we did back in March. Guess what? We didn't wear that in March. We weren't wearing masks in March. Do you remember? Do you remember when we flattened the curve by early and mid-April? No one was wearing a mask.
And at that time, Fauci was saying healthy people, Dr. Redfield from the CDC and Dr. Fauci were both saying at that time, there's no need for healthy people to wear masks. Nobody was requiring masks at that time. So how did we flatten the curve?
So don't let them fool you now, because this is about control of you. It has absolutely nothing to do, but it does have to do with your health. But they don't care about your health. They just want to control you. And that's where it is. Just like not singing in church and all the other things that go along with this airborne, whatever it is. It's absolute craziness. Tammy, I know you wanted to cover a couple of things about the Constitution, I think.
Yeah, and the Declaration of Independence. So I just wanted to read. I'm actually going to pull up something and read to you guys because many of you were with us yesterday at the Capitol. And one of the things that we talked about was refusing to go along with the narrative. Well, in the Declaration of Independence, many of you are familiar with it, but I'm actually going to read it word for word. This is not coming from Tammy. This is coming from the Declaration of Independence, that when a government begins to violate your personal rights and freedoms, your liberties, your civil liberties, and your unalienable rights, that means given to you by God, that the Constitution protects. Here's what the Declaration of Independence says about all of this. And this is why I started the hashtag refuse to obey today, okay? Because this is what our government documents that our founding fathers in their divine providential wisdom wrote for us for future events just like this. Okay, it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, that's our key here, and the pursuit of happiness. Now let me ask you, how many of you are able to be happy? Our governor talked about, she's so concerned about your mental health, but what is she doing? She has single-handedly created a mental health crisis in this country because of all these mandates. Oh, I see Tom Barrett there. If you want to let him in, Tom, or Ron. Okay. So that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Okay, so let me clarify that. To secure these unalienable rights, governments are instituted among men. That's why your government was created. It was not created to tell you what to do and to be your mommy and boss you around and tell you how many people you can have over for Thanksgiving dinner and what kind of meals you can have and what kinds of utensils you can use, right? I'm thinking, what am I going to do? Serve Lunchables so that we don't share the mashed potato spoon? I mean, this is all so ridiculous. So if we're not able to pursue life, liberty, if our liberties are being trampled on, or to pursue happiness, then that government that was established to protect these rights shall be handled a certain way. Let me continue. All right. So it says, governments to secure these rights are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So where does our government get its power? Where does Governor Whitmer get her power? From you, from me. She doesn't get to just decide to be our dictator and control every aspect of our lives unilaterally. It does not work that way. And if she does decide to act like that, here's what we are supposed to do. So whenever any form, so they have derived their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to they shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So what Kristen, Megan, and I just talked about the masks, about, the constant fomite transmission of constantly, Dr. Gordon is up there touching his mask constantly. He's increasing the likelihood that he will get the SARS-CoV-2 and get COVID-19 from fomite transmission. So talk about protecting our safety. They're doing more to harm you by demanding you wear these masks that have a lot of unintended consequences. Kristen and I have been talking about this for months. We've anticipated and we have actually stated, you watch, you're going to start to see things like bacterial pneumonia, the dermatitis, the perioral dermatitis. You're going to start to see asthma. You're going to start to see all kinds of things. And guess what? We have, because of the unintended consequences and the greater hazard that wearing these masks do. Not only do they not stop the spread of this disease, but they create a greater hazard, right? Okay, so if we feel that we need to stop this government, reorganize this to protect our safety and our happiness, we have the right to do such. Okay, let me keep going. I'm going to skip a few sentences. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, do you think this governor is abusing her powers? Absolutely. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariable the same object, evidences a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty. Okay, it's not just our right, it is our duty. This is what I've been coming at you with, telling you. It is your responsibility as an American citizen to throw off such a government. This is why I started the call to action email today as a call to action to refuse to obey. Because we need to throw off this government and to provide such new guards for our future security. This is right out of the Declaration of Independence. This is not Tammy. I'm not just telling you. I'm not just telling you, look, we need to practice some good old-fashioned American civil disobedience because I'm rebellious. I'm telling you this because this is what our government documents that were written by our founding fathers tell us to do in the event of such future abuses of power. So we are at the point, guys, that we have got fraud and corruption that is so rampant, and we have got such egregious abuses of power that now we are being told we can't even have our family members over, what kind of foods we can eat, how we are to eat those foods. We got to eat outside. Wait, I think she forgot we live in the mitten. Are you kidding me? I mean, how egregious is this? And you know what? It is time when she starts closing restaurants again. How many restaurants are going to actually survive this? I don't think very many are going to survive another shutdown. So that's why I got this righteous anger going on inside of me. And you all know me, that I get a little righteously angry with some of this stuff. And I simply put it out there as a call to action. And I actually threw it out there to Tommy Brand to join us because he is a representative in the House of Representatives who owns restaurants. And I've chatted with him about this. I was hoping he could join us tonight to represent the Restaurant Association, that it is time that business owners in particular, this call to action is particularly to business owners. It is time that you refuse to obey, because she cannot control us. The health department cannot control you. If every single one of you link arms and you get together with your associations and you say, absolutely not, we are not closing. We refuse to submit to this tyranny. You do not have the right, Governor Whitmer, to tell us that we cannot operate our businesses, feed our families, pay our employees. Enough of this. They're barely holding on right now. Do you think they can survive another shutdown? And oh, by the way, this is the busiest season for retail and restaurants, and she wants to shut them down going into the busiest season, the holiday season. Are you kidding me? So we wanted to throw this call to action tonight, and I am hoping and praying, and I put it out there to Tommy Brand to bring it to the Michigan Restaurant Association, that restaurant owners, you are paying your dues to an association for a reason. They should be standing by and supporting you and suing the governor and the health department for trying to disrupt commerce, for trying to disrupt your business over a virus. And guess what? I looked into this. How many flu cases do you think have actually been reported in Michigan? 0. Do you know what the actual symptoms of COVID are and the actual symptoms of influenza are? They are 100% identical, except for with COVID, there's the additional symptom of the loss of taste and smell. Well, that ain't going to kill you, but it is an additional symptom. So why all of a sudden during cold and flu season are there no flu cases being reported, but everybody's dying of COVID? Oh, and by the way, those COVID tests are so unreliable that Elon Musk went and took 4 of them in one day. 2 came back positive, 2 came back negative, and he took them back to back. So what are we doing? Is this reliable information?
And that's the reason, Tammy, that we wanted to bring everybody together tonight before you decide in the next 48 hours. By the way, this is magical, going to happen at 12:01 a.m. on Wednesday. I guess tomorrow and Tuesday are okay for you to go about your business, but Wednesday it's time to lock down, shut down for 3 weeks, and then we'll have to see if you obey well enough whether we can let you go back to doing something normal again or not. So
right.
The reason we're covering all of these bases with you now, and the reason we wanted to bring Senator Barrett on here, is because we want to give you a little bit of background so that you can have strength in numbers. The only way this is going to be overcome is if everyone follows this and you do not succumb to this. Those that are obviously have underlying health conditions and whatever, we know you're in a situation. But the general business owner, the general piece of people of the public, and my phone is blowing up, the Facebook is blowing up, people are ready to say enough. And the reason I wanted to bring again Senator Barrett on is because we actually have news stations reporting that the legislature was ready to go along with this. And that is to fool you. It's to put you in a position where you will succumb. And the next thing you'll know, everybody's just shut down. And after all, Thanksgiving's coming, right? We might as well just stay home and be safe, right? So Senator Barrett, thank you for joining us. I'd like you to give us an update of what you heard earlier today. And I want you to give us a little history lesson on what all of this means.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Kristen, everybody for allowing me on today, and appreciate the invitation. And like you pointed out earlier, there was this just totally false story circulating online today that the legislature was, somehow agreeing with the governor. We were about set to reach a compromise with her on the conditions of a shutdown for the state. And I can confirm to you and all of your viewers and listeners right now that there was no such conversation taking place, no notice whatsoever. I received nothing from the administration as far as a heads up or a briefing as to what they were going to impose or what type of mandate they were going to try and enforce on us. And there was no discussion with any of my colleagues about any types of conditions that we would have, any type of agreement on whatsoever. This was entirely a decision made by the governor. Of course, tried to force through her Health and Human Services director, an appointee of hers that's in the executive branch. And about 5 weeks ago, the Michigan Supreme Court decided that the executive branch had overstepped their authority in the pursuit of all these shutdowns that Governor Whitmer had perpetuated beginning on May 1st. And here we are 5 weeks later, and she's still using the executive branch through another agency, through a subordinate of hers, to perpetuate these on her own. If that's not unconstitutional, I don't know what is. And then furthermore, the legislative statute that gives the health department authority to act in the time of a pandemic does not allow this type of nitty gritty micromanagement of our daily lives, who you can have at your house, what type of Thanksgiving you can have, and the type of socialization you can have within your own home. That is nothing statutorily permitted by the health department for them to be able to do. So even if the court were to find that this particular law or statute was constitutional, they would certainly find that the authority within that statute does not give the health department the type of micromanagement that they've been trying to do. And Tammy, to your point, and Ron, yours, until people are willing to step up and say enough is enough, they are like they've got this hand at the poker table that they're trying to bluff and suggest that they have a straight flush when really they don't. And they're trying to get the rest of us to fold just to comply because their hand is weak, and they know that. Now, the danger we have and the risk that we run right now is in January, we'll be seating a new Supreme Court judge here in Michigan. And the judge who wrote the decision where we prevailed over the governor was forced to retire because he had aged out of the point where he could no longer stand for election under Michigan law to the Supreme Court, and was replaced by a Democrat. The Democrats will now have a 1-vote majority on the Michigan Supreme Court starting in January. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but really it's going to take all of us working in the same direction to accomplish that together. But certainly want to make sure your listeners and viewers are aware that the legislature was not complicit with this. We were not participatory with this, and we were not involved in the governor's decision. This was entirely made by her and her health department director, and nothing as far as input from any of us.
Oh, you're muted, Ron. You're on mute, Ron. Sorry.
I'm talking to myself. I could hear myself.
I'm sure you sounded great.
I did. It sounded great. No, I did. While we've got you here, a lot of the comments that are coming in, because we do believe that this is also a bit of a distraction.
Yeah.
Think about what transpired yesterday. One of the biggest freedom rallies that has happened in the state of Michigan's history. The day after that, we ban all these gatherings, and we need to keep each other away. We are censored on social media, and we have to find ways in order to reach you. We need you, as you see this, to share this video. It is on YouTube. It will be on our locals, and it will be shared on everyone else's platforms and pages. We need them to see this so that we can stand up together starting tomorrow. We have till Wednesday to get the message out for people to say enough. And I promise you, those that will stand up will be celebrated for standing up for freedom. The reason I wanted to talk about freedom just a little bit is that I don't know if you know or not, but people are saying, are our legislators standing up? They're asking for an audit. What are they doing? And I want you to cover the fact, not only the letter that you and Lana Tice that wrote, but I saw a picture of you in the White House. I saw you actually receive an envelope, and tell us what was inside so that people will understand not only are you standing up, Tom, but the people are recognizing you're standing up, and we need to also.
Yes, I was. This was a real a bit of a coincidence and fortune. I happened to be at the White House, totally unrelated to the election. I was invited on a tour by one of my constituents who's interning at the White House this fall. Invited me on a tour. It just happened to fall on Friday, a couple of days ago, that I was at the White House. It was the day that Senator Tice and I had released that letter demanding an audit of the election results here in the state of Michigan. Donald Trump Jr. had tweeted out that letter in support. And then while I was at the White House, my office was contacted by the White House to ask for my address because the president wanted to send a thank you letter to us for it. And I just told them, I said, well, I'm here right now. I can pick it up in person. So before our tour was over, they had delivered an envelope and letter, fantastic, from the president. He had actually written on top of the letter that Senator Tice and I had written. He had written on top of that and thanked us for our efforts, and it was really incredible and humbling to receive that at the White House while we were there. So I know the president's with us. I know that he's on our side. I know he's going to keep fighting, and we got to keep the faith as well. And it's really going to take all of us doing this work. And I did chat a bit with Senator Tice earlier today, and she pointed out that this 3-week shutdown could be an attempt to prevent us from being able to do an audit of the election, because that certification timeline is about 3 weeks from now in which that would be done. So if they're doing this as a mechanism or a means to prevent us from doing a fair election audit, then shame on them even more.
Oh, absolutely. And it would not surprise me one bit, because she has shown herself to be very punitive and very, very aggressive in her attempts at things like this.
And spiteful at those who speak out against her.
Well, yeah, that's what we were saying. Every single time we have had a Stand Up Michigan rally, or there has been a rally on the steps of the Capitol, like a freedom rally or a protest for freedom, the very next day she has come out with some sort of punishment or orders. She is incredibly punitive, and it's not lost on us. It's obvious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I was really...
That's not leadership, that's bullying.
Absolutely.
I was really surprised this evening. I thought I would hear her say that she was worried about Michiganders coming back from DC and, you know, furthering the spread. And sorry, my little one's trying to come in here. But one thing that I can share with you is that I've been working with Rudy Giuliani and his son Andrew, and I've been working with people I won't name here to deal with the election issues here in Michigan, because I'm a veteran and I'm highly connected with Oath Keepers and other media personalities. And I have high confidence that their silence to this issue, what's going on right now, and we might get it for 24 hours, we're not going to hear anything. But I am a direct line to his team, and I can tell you, if this is any form of interference, sorry, this is my 4-year-old.
It's a form of interference.
then I will definitely let the team know. But one thing I just want to add is that I am a veteran, and it is so important for anyone who's taken an oath to understand. And I'm going to be very careful in how I say this, but I'm not going to censor myself when this has to do with my oath. I took an oath to uphold the Constitution against enemies foreign and domestic. And what is happening through the actions, hold on, sweetie, through the actions of our governor is a form of democratic acts of terrorism. And if anyone has a problem with that, or I've upset anyone here, please take it up with Webster's dictionary. Because when you use fear and intimidation for a political agenda, that's exactly what it is. And I am tired of the petty tyrant type of initiations and actions that are occurring, again, through abusing different agencies, because I know this has to do with her being angry with what's going on with the election at the expense of business owners, family members, and the dwindling mental health of Michiganders.
Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah, while she went on to talk about how she's so concerned about our mental health, yet she herself has single-handedly created probably the worst mental health crisis in this state, period. She is directly responsible for shutting businesses down, putting people out of work, bankruptcies, mental health crisis, suicides on the rise, substance abuse, and abuse of every type as a result. And yet she wants to go ahead and shut us down again And we know that this has to do with the election and with the auditing and all that. We know that. We know, I mean, the writing is on the wall with her. And that's why we have gotten to the point that we, it was just like, enough is enough. Stand up, everybody. Just absolutely refuse. Link arms. You have a huge support network here with Stand Up Michigan. There are hundreds of thousands of us, like-minded citizens, freedom-loving patriots who refuse to go along with the narrative. But it has gotten to the point that it is time for us to call for full-blown, good old-fashioned American civil disobedience, because your rights and your liberties have been completely trampled on and violated. And so the Declaration of Independence requires you, it is your duty to stand up against this, to say, no, I'm not going along with it. So that's our call to action tonight. And that's why we want you to share this. You've heard from Senator Barrett that it was a lie what the news media is saying. The legislature is not going along with this. They're not participating in this. They're trying to get to the bottom of the election. Meanwhile, she's trying to shut us down and prevent that from happening. She's trying to silence you and put you out of business. So we are doing this call to action so you will share this with everybody you know, because this is the truth. What you're seeing and what you're hearing from us, from your leaders at Stand Up Michigan, from medical professionals like Kristen, Megan, and myself, PPE and respiratory protection experts who do nothing but train people on masks, PPE, and respirators. We are telling you that what you're hearing from these people who are so outside of their lane is 180 degrees opposite of what you should be doing. It is a lie. It is misinformation, disinformation, and it is harmful to you. And what you just heard from Senator Barrett, he addressed the fact that what you're hearing in the media is not true. This is lies. So you need to spread this. You need to stand up, and we need to have this call to action in place for the next 3 weeks. Refuse to submit, refuse to obey, and link arms with your fellow patriots, because it has come to this point that civil disobedience is now obedience to our governing documents, our American governing documents. And it's time that we do away with the rebellion or the tyranny, and we rebel as is what's called for, and we do it properly together.
So while we have you here, Senator Barrett, again, a lot of the comments are going back to what they believe is the reason yesterday's rally, and that is because we know there's fraud.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know the level of fraud right now, but we're trying to get a full audit, which is the key. I know that's part of your letter, and a lot of people want to know, what are the legislators? What are you doing with the oversight committee? What would the process likely look like, so that the people would know what it is you're doing or what you can do at this very stage?
Sure. And I know, so Senator Tice put together a website where people can submit or rather sign a petition to call for an audit. Let me see if I can find that, Ron, and I'll send it over to you if you haven't seen it. I believe Senator Tice had it on her Facebook page, and I will try and find that and send that to you. But then also, we did execute subpoena powers for our oversight committee in the House and Senate, joint oversight committee in the House and Senate in Michigan, and have issued subpoenas of people, records, documents, and other of the necessary things to preserve that as evidence should we need it. And then we're looking into, whether or not there were, issues with data security with any of these polling machines, whether or not, these anomalies that we discovered, or, the appearance of ballots in the middle of the night, all kinds of different things. People voting who were born in 1900, for example, that poll watchers saw ballots cast by people who were born in 1900 who were, put through the tabulator and counted as a valid vote. So all of these types of things are what we are seeking to look into. And the eyewitness testimony of people who were present at, different poll watching locations throughout the state and witnessed different things deserves our full faith and attention to look into and really analyze, and not just brush aside as a bunch of conspiracy theorists or people who don't know what they're talking about, or, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, because we know what we're doing and that's what's going to happen. And when you have this much eyewitness testimony of people coming forward and stepping forward, it really demands our attention. And we are going to place the focus of, the public to the greatest extent possible back into where it belongs, to look and scrutinize what's, peeling back the onion layers of this. And I feel it's our moral obligation and it's our duty to our citizens to do that.
and I want to say, and I'm sure the others do too, is that I appreciate you and Senator Tice and Steve Johnson, and I know I could mention several more. Luke Merriman. There are a lot of you that are standing up tall, and I want you to know that you are the voices and the leaders there, regardless of who sits in the speaker's chair. They also represent the members, right? And I'm saying there are people that are so thankful that you will come out and speak on short notice and answer these kind of questions, difficult questions. We know there's limits of what you can do legislatively, but to know where your heart is, to know where your motivating factor is. And when you talk about behind the curtain, and I heard that on the floor of the Senate one time when you spoke before too. And it's a terrific analogy, because it's exactly what they're doing. Is if we can censor them long enough, if we can keep them distracted, if we can separate them from joining together, if we can keep their voices alone, if we can isolate them, they will have to follow. That's exactly where they are, people. If you can't see it now, you're never going to see it. And so today's challenge again is to stand up like never before. And before I turn it over back again to Kristen and Tammy, I had a pastor who wrote this just this evening, and I just want to read to you to know that there are people standing up. He writes, most recently with disdain for the ruling of law, Governor Whitmer commandeered the Michigan Health and Human Service Department to enforce the same mandates. This is in defiance of the legislators as well as the judiciary branch of the government. Note that the above court decisions names the MHHS, 2/3 of the state government opposed Governor Gretchen Whitmer on this. A few thoughts. I have never closed the doors of my church, and we are not going to start now. I will be in my office every day for the rest of the year. There seems to be a party of people who want to project authority that they do not have. Our governor had a press conference to command our compliance and our paradigm in medicine. The free people of Michigan are not obligated to comply with a single one of these orders. It was illegal for her to convey this as an order. It is another constitutional crisis which she will lose. If your restaurant chooses to remain open, let me know, and I'm happily going to sit down and eat at your place. I'll happily shop in your store. What is the state business license after all? Local school board, it's your decision what you choose to do in this situation. What are your property taxes actually paying for after all? And if you choose to wear a mask, that's wonderful. If yours works, you should have no concern about me. I will not wear one. No cloth or medical covering will ever touch my skin outside of an operating room. We're having about 30 people over for Thanksgiving, by the way, from several different households. And if the governor chooses to stop by, she should try the stuffing first. That was from a pastor. And I am telling you that these are the comments that are coming from people who are choosing now. Maybe not in March. We were too afraid of what we may have been facing. But we bent that curve, by the way, without masks. We did that by mid-April, and it continued on from there throughout the entire summer, destroying individual lives and liberties and businesses across our state and across our country. We are being looked at all around this country and around the world. National leaders, as Kristen is talking about, are depending on us and the example that we set in the state of Michigan. And they are copying and looking at this because there's nobody more tyrannical than what we are facing here in the state of Michigan, or at least there aren't many. So we are asking you to stand tall with us at this point and say, absolutely, no more. We refuse to comply, refuse to consent. And if we all do that together, she absolutely has nothing that she can do for you. Nothing that she can do to you.
And Ron, if I could just butt in very quickly, I appreciate that letter. That's fantastic. I found the website that people can go to sign the letter that Senator Tice and I submitted. You can go online to sign your name to that petition as well. The website is called ensurefairelections.com. You can read the letter there and then sign your name to it as well. And that we will, build on that and hopefully attract more attention to the audit that we're calling for.
What was that again? I'm going to post it right here in the comments.
Sure. It's called ensurefairelections.com.
Yeah, and we are going to be having Senator Tice on tomorrow. We're going to do a live with her.
Awesome.
Just to focus on this and this letter. And then we have quite an email database. I think we probably have close to 70,000 people that we are going to be emailing that letter out to. And we're going to be.
By the way, Tammy, mention it right now too. Go to the website. We didn't put that in here. Please sign up. With this censorship, we never know what's going to be taken down. But we want you to know, if you go to standupmichigan.com, you'll immediately see there. You can give us your email information, because then we can forward this video, which, by the way, will be included in an email that you can forward by email, or you can take a link and text it to friends so that you don't have to include it in all social media.
Yeah, so when you go to our website, standupmichigan.com, there's a pop-up box that it shows up, and you have to either hit exit to get out of it, or you enter your name and your email address. And the reason for that is because we are trying to build our email database. That is the one way that we for sure can always stay in touch with all of you. Email addresses don't change that frequently. So, YouTube could take us down. Right now we're doing lives off of YouTube because we got taken down off of Facebook. And we are working on building, as I shared yesterday, from the Capitol, we are working on building that locals platform where we will be able to come and do lives off of that locals platform, but we're not there yet. So in case we get taken down off of YouTube, because Kristen and I have done videos that have gone viral, have been very, very popular, and YouTube has taken them down. So you just never know. But with those email addresses, we have quite a database, and we want to collect all of your email addresses so that we can always communicate with you just like this, very timely, very quickly. And push newsletter information, push factual information to you. So yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that, Tom, because we are going to actually focus, the whole live is going to be based on that audit, that letter coming from the legislature, and then coming from the citizens of Michigan as well. So if you would, while we have you with us, could you update everybody with where things are at with that right now? Because people ask us all the time, what's going on? Where is it at? So do you have any more information, or are you still kind of in waiting to hear mode?
Sorry, was that on the lawsuit or on the audit?
On the audit. People want to know what's going on with that audit.
We are still waiting to hear. The Secretary of State has tried to claim that the canvass that they do after the election is an audit, which is not really the case.
No.
The canvass just, is the very, the putting together of the pieces of the different numbers and the tallies and everything else. But that in and of itself is not an audit. And I passed a bill 2 years ago in Michigan to require Michigan to use paper ballots because of the concern that was going on about these touchscreen machines that other states were using at the time that could misappropriate, figures or votes for one person or another. And there was concern that they could be corrupted in some way. And if you ever need to do a recount, you can't recount a computer machine. It just simply will display the same result again. The paper ballots at least give us that opportunity. And I'm hoping we can have the opportunity to really do a forensic dive into those paper ballots, and also to see, based on the poll book, who should have voted, whose name got counted in there. Were they a legal resident of Michigan, or did they move away? Are they deceased? We know already that our Secretary of State knowingly sent hundreds of thousands of absentee ballot applications to people who had surrendered their driver's license because they had moved out of Michigan, had, told the state they had moved, or had died. I know of constituents of mine who received official state absentee ballot applications for relatives of theirs who had died some number of years ago. And the Secretary of State is required by law to scrub the voter database with the Social Security Administration to remove dead people many, many times a year. So why somebody would be getting an application from our Secretary of State, 3, 4, 5 years after they died is just inexcusable. It's either an attempt at, voter fraud, or it's just gross incompetence, one or the other. And I'll let you decide what you think it is, because I certainly have my suspicion.
Well, when you put it all together, it certainly is not real hard to come to the right conclusions and connect the dots. There's too much discrepancy. It's not just one thing. So that's why the people are so frustrated, and they come to us and ask questions. And so I appreciate you coming on, because I would rather, and Ron would rather, have you answer the questions. You guys are the ones out there fighting the fights.
I'd rather have you answer the questions for some of the emails I get, but
I know. I can imagine.
I
understand.
understand.
I appreciate the opportunity to come on and clear the air a little bit. And I'm on your side, and I know you guys are united with us too. And I appreciate the love and support that you've given me. So thank you.
Well, thank you. So can I ask you a couple more questions while I have you on that I get all the time? Okay, so
Sure.
where is the lawsuit right now? Where the lawsuit that we were talking about, not the audit. Where is that right now? What's going on with that? Because there a lot of people ask about that as
Yeah.
well.
So there's a number of different lawsuits challenging the governor in different ways. We tried to amend our original lawsuit against the governor for, executive power with the 1945 Act that, that you and the citizens
Yeah.
collected so many signatures to repeal. The Supreme Court ruled, of course, in our favor, but then the governor immediately tried to claim she had a 21-day extension, which was just completely absurd. And then after
Yeah.
that, imposed these rules or restrictions through her Department of Human Services, her own appointee. We tried to basically amend our lawsuit to also have those struck down, and the Supreme Court did not allow us to do that quickly. But there are other lawsuits pending right now. The Great Lakes Justice Center has one with a group of chiropractors, I believe, that really lays out some great legal case law argument. And again, they can pick this from a couple of different directions. One is the constitutionality of how you can have, if the chief executive of the state of Michigan cannot impose these orders as the highest elected official in the state, how can a subordinate that nobody's ever heard of impose these orders on us? That just on its face seems absurd. But then secondarily to that, the statute that the health department is operating under does not give them this authority to operate this way, to really intercede in our daily lives. Like Ron and Tammy, like you were saying about, who we can have at our dinner table, for example, is not something the health department has the authority to decide. They have the authority to prohibit gatherings during a pandemic. They can prohibit gatherings altogether, but it doesn't say, well, high schools will have to close down, but grade schools can stay open, and this type of thing can occur, but that one can't. It is an all or nothing type of authority. And for them to come in and granularly decide how we live our daily lives exceeds the scope of authority, even under the statute. So constitutionally, it's a similar argument to the lawsuit against the governor, but statutorily, it also has a lot of vulnerability, I feel, where we have a great ability to exploit that in the courts, I feel, as well. So those are still pending. My understanding is we got a pretty good judge for the first round of that. And we're waiting to see kind of where that goes right now. I think we've been pulled in so many directions in the last few weeks, around human services orders, then the election, what was going on with the balloting and the tabulation and the counting of those, and all of the strain on that. And then all of a sudden this comes out too, and it's just yanking us in all these directions. And Ron, you pointed it out, they're trying to divide and, distract and keep us fragmented and take our voice away from us. This is what governments do. That's just so shameful. I never thought I'd live in the United States with that happening. And yet here we are.
Yeah, it seems like more of a third world country tactic, right? And it's by design, and that's what dictators do. So
It's
it is
definitely
shameful.
purposeful. It's not accidental what's happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So a couple other questions, and I'm just reading some comments, and I have them written down from things I get in my emails and my texts. If we know that what this governor is doing is so egregious, can the legislature band together and stand up and stop her and say no, come together, put out a press release, tell the people like what we're telling them, guys, just refuse to shut down. If the health department comes and puts a padlock on your door, go there with bolt cutters and cut it off and keep going. If they give you a citation, go get an attorney like Coleman and go fight it, right? We already have case precedent. If they threaten to take away your business license, let them threaten. We have legal case precedent that they can't do that. Only the state licensing boards can do that. So carry on. Well, can't the legislature? A lot of people are very frustrated because they don't hear from the legislature. What can the legislature do to stop this? They should be able to do something like what we're doing. So can you address that for the people?
Sure. A couple of points. One is that, you've seen how difficult it is to get a message out with the following that you have from a voluntary perspective of people who are trying to find you online, and they're being, smothered. Their voice is being smothered by Facebook and YouTube and Google and all the rest, right? We've seen that happening. The media doesn't cover what the legislature does. They only cover the governor. You saw just today an example of the media claiming that the legislature was involved in a decision to shut down the state. And I called the news desk of the station multiple times to really insist that they take that down because it was just patently false. I said, look, I have no knowledge on what the governor is going to come up with at her press conference, and she very well may try and shut the state down again. But you absolutely cannot claim that the legislature was involved in that, or has reached an agreement, or has found a compromise with the governor to do that legislatively. That is just 100% not true, and you're misinforming people. And I'm telling you that it's just not accurate. So the news media does not really cover what we do in the legislature. And then I will say this too: we don't have the super majority it takes to override our governor. One example: I had a bill that passed unanimously to protect state employee whistleblowers who step forward to give credible claims of issues they see at work. Refer that to the legislature for us to take action, and we try and protect their identity when it's sensitive information, things of that sort, and passed a bill unanimously to protect people in that situation. And I mean, part of me feels like because it was my bill, Governor Whitmer vetoed that bill that passed the legislature unanimously, and we could not get a single Democrat legislator who had just voted for it a few weeks earlier and put their stamp of approval on it. Not one of them would step up to override the governor. So they are so beholden to her that none of them will step up and do that. So we are limited with the ability that we have. Now, thankfully, we retained the House of Representatives going into next term. The Senate was not on the ballot, so we retain our majority as well. But we don't have the supermajority to override Governor Whitmer on anything. And it will be up to individuals, as you pointed out, to make that determination. But people are still afraid. They saw the targeting that took place, the vindictiveness that this administration takes. Look at Carl Mankey as an example. And while he came out of that on the right side, certainly hasn't spent a single day in jail, for example, even though he was charged with a misdemeanor, threatened, and had, I think, 6 state police troopers show up at his door to try and get him to shut down. They tried to get a court order against him and everything else. He spent not a single day in jail. But people are still threatened and intimidated by thinking, well, I'm glad Carl, had that outcome, but I don't know if I can weather that same kind of storm. And people doubt their ability to overcome that. You have restaurants, for example, that have a liquor license that is a huge part of their revenue coming in every single day is just on their liquor license. And if they step out in violation of these orders, they're very concerned that they could have their liquor license revoked. And then what do? And, they are afraid. And that's what we have to be conscious of, is people are afraid, and we have to give them some hope and some support and promise for the future and everything else. But I talk to business owners who are not just afraid for themselves, they're afraid for their employees. And, the health, welfare benefit and quality of life that they provide for the employees and the families of their employees. They said, look, I could maybe do this myself, but what about the people who work for me and their families? And what happens if they come in and yank our license and we're shut down and we're in court, dealing with this for weeks or months at a time? And what type of effect would that have for their livelihoods and quality of life too? So there is a lot of considerations that people are making. I don't blame them for feeling scared about that. And we got to do our best to help, support them and prop them up to do their best and be that, shining light for the rest of us to rally behind.
Yeah, and I completely understand that. And that's why Stand Up Michigan is here. So let me address the first part of your answer. And I really appreciate that, because I want you to know that is exactly why Ron and I have reached out to you. We understand that the press will not cover you. The press will not give you any airtime. And then what they do cover is 100% wrong. They paint you in a really bad light, right?
Yeah.
So we started with the House because obviously they were up for re-election, and we were very concerned right before the election. And we felt like we needed to use our platform to help them get the message out, to help them to speak to the people. But moving forward then, and we're watching all of this, that's why we reached out to you and Senator Tice and Patrick Colbeck, because we feel like we have a platform and we've got hundreds of thousands of people that want answers. And then we have relationships with you, and we feel like, hey, we can be that connection, right? And we can be that platform to let you guys speak, to connect you with the people. and to allow you to communicate and people to ask the questions. And that's why I'm asking you a lot of questions, because these are not just my questions. They're questions
Sure.
people
Yeah.
ask us.
And I
want
wish
answers
there
from.
I wish there was more we could do. I mean, I'll give you an example. If I got elected to the legislature, first to the House of Representatives in 2014, walked in the door January 1st of 2015. If I had introduced a bill to repeal the 1945 Emergency Powers of the Governor Act, because we had a redundant emergency powers law already on the books, it probably would have passed unanimously and been signed into law without a second thought in the world. And it's things like that that in hindsight would have been fantastic to think about. But, you know, a 75-year-old law is not something that that a lot of us even really contemplate in our day-to-day lives. We're stuck thinking about, you know, the issues right in front of us and the focus of what's, you know, the important issues in the state at the time. And certainly for regular folks, they're raising a family and got kids in school and working hard at their job and their profession. They rightfully expect us in the legislature to be that backstop on their rights and privileges being infringed upon. And I'm telling you, you know, it takes everybody rowing in the same direction. And you know, if people have suggestions for what we can or should or ought to be doing, I'm definitely not here to pretend that I'm the only one with answers or solutions or, you know, a monopoly on what we should or shouldn't be doing. We have tried a number of different things, and there are some just, you know, legal parameters of what we can and can't do. We can't override the governor from a functional standpoint. Not a single Democrat will join with us. So that's not, you know, technically, yes, we could override the governor, but realistically and politically, there's just not a way right now with the Democrat makeup of the legislature for us to do that. But we got to find other avenues then. That's not an excuse. It's just saying we got to find other avenues to be effective.
Yeah, and it is getting to the point that it is so egregious that this call to action for civil disobedience and outright defiance and disobedience of these orders, I think, is fully in order. And it's fully American to band together at this point. And because you guys can't do it, and that's what the people need to understand. You don't have the supermajority to do that. Stand up and link arms, you know, in the legislature, look this governor in the eyes and say no, and tell the people to say no. So that's where we're coming from, and that's why we're asking you to join with us on this platform to support us in these calls to action in this effort.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you, I'm not going to be spending Thanksgiving by myself, and Thanksgiving is one of those.
Well, that's good.
You know, yeah, it's one of those uniquely American holidays. It really is.
Absolutely.
And it's one that we should not let pass by as some just another day on the calendar.
No.
If we can't, you know, human beings are supposed to be social. And I had a conversation with someone on the phone today, and I said, you know, there's a reason that the Supreme Court has found that solitary confinement is basically cruel and unusual punishment. You can't just send somebody to solitary confinement. And, you know, they could have their essentials, right? Food, water, medicine, the essential things that they need, but yet they don't have socialization. And that is a really fundamentally human need that you can't articulate in a medical textbook or an executive order or a mandate from the state or any of those types of things. And when we pretend that we aren't social creatures is when, you know, that fundamental breakdown takes place.
Well, that's one of the reasons that Stand Up Michigan came about in the first place, and it's been very successful because we provided a platform, and with our three pillars, we care, we inform and educate, and we activate. And the first thing that we did was allow people a place to reach out and communicate and care for each other, because it is incredibly unhealthy for human beings to be separated and isolated. And I've been saying this all along, that what has happened to our seniors, and is still happening to our seniors, it's cruel and unusual punishment. They are dying alone. Husbands not able to see their wives and vice versa. And they're dying without their families.
Right.
That is cruel. And it shouldn't be happening. We don't do that during the cold and flu season. So why are we doing that now? Right.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, of course, it's no secret. I was tested positive for COVID back in July and went through my quarantine and everything else. And then have donated plasma to the Red Cross for their experimental antibody treatment program that you hear about. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, you know, they are literally injecting my blood into other people to try and save their life, but they won't let me breathe 5 feet away from them.
Exactly.
Like, I'm
so
sorry,
backwards.
that's just not scientific at that point.
No. Well,
It's
none of
about
this is
compliance.
scientific, to be honest with you. Megan and I, or Kristen, Megan and I, we are the proactive, preventative medical care professionals. We are the scientists. I mean, that's what we do.
Yeah.
We look at the numbers and we
And
look at the
thank God
spreadsheets
for
and the
you guys.
data.
I'm just an Army grunt, so we need
Well-
people like you that know what you're talking about.
Well, it takes all of us, trust me. Right? But we are the ones who are out there saying, this is not scientific. There's no science, no data. The science and the data that we have shows exactly the opposite of what they're saying. So we've been shouting it from the rooftops and trying to connect all the dots like this. It's all coming together now with the legislature and the people and the real medical professionals and scientists out there. It's really coming together to give people a place to get accurate, truthful scientific information, data, to hear from the legislature, so that now we can collectively, as a state, stand up confidently and boldly and make our own choices independently for our own freedoms, our own family, our own medical choices, our own medical care, and move forward with confidence. So it's really been important for us to be able to connect with you. And so I really appreciate you. I know you're having some car
Thank you.
troubles. And so thank you for coming
Yeah,
on
yeah.
tonight.
I apologize for getting on late, and
No, that's
thank you
fine.
for
All
having me, and thank you for the encouragement and support, and for those that have reached out and supported our efforts. I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. And I want to have Kristen say a few words because I know she's got some before we go. But I just want to say to all of you that are trying to sign that letter, we're getting some notifications they're having trouble signing in. This is the second time we've kind of put this out there, and second time that it's kind of crashed the server a bit.
Oh,
and I got
okay.
that from Lana before. So those of you that are trying, just try again. It's just that a lot of people are trying to do it at the same time, and I don't think they anticipated the volume that they have been getting, but it's all great news. So
It's a good problem to have.
yeah, it's a great problem to have. Kristen.
Yeah, so I just wanted to address something that I've seen constantly come through the comments, and I get these emails all the time. And there are comments being stated how we just completely forgot about disability laws. And I'll start out by saying I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a disability lawyer. However, my science background, I have worked with disability attorneys, and I've been making ADA accommodations for the past 18 years by conducting health risk assessments and understanding ADA law. I am a totally and permanently disabled veteran. I have an exemption that I've actually held since my last year on active duty. So mask use isn't new for me. I've had to wear it in my career field. And I want people to understand that regardless, this mask thing is not law, regardless of what she said on TV. And there is a difference between having a medical intolerance versus having an ADA protected disability. And I'm going to actually read you the definition so that everyone can kind of understand. So an ADA disability is defined as having a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities and has a record of such impairment, or is regarded as having such an impairment that affects major life activities and lists a whole bunch of different functions. I am one of those people. I am ADA protected. I've been refused service, just was the other day. I'll call you out, Stella's downtown Grand Rapids. I need business owners to understand, and I need the disabled to understand. If you fall under that ADA protection, you have a protection under ADA Title III. I don't care what a business tells you. They can tell you they're a private business. If they're a private business, that still provides a public accommodation, meaning they let customers come in and out. Their policies, some say it's not what the government's telling us, these are our own policies. Your policies cannot violate disability law. So be respectful, exert your legal rights, take names. If you are being denied entry based on your disability, not because you won't wear a mask, it's your disability, you have a legal right to be given written notice why you were denied entry. And there is a whole list of reasons on ways that they can attempt to refuse you service. And I can tell you there's maybe 0.05% chance that have to do with the mask, because you're not causing undue hardship and things like that, and have them change their business practices. So I just want people to know, and I'm going to just close it out with this. This is a quote I've been saying. I've been giving speeches for the past 10 years about freedom, is that we're watching the media and our governor and some of our politicians push this fear for a virus that we now know through the own government coming out and saying a greater than 99% recovery rate. So please remember, this is what I always say. Emotions cloud our ability to view objections clearly. These objections also often peel back the layers of propaganda and hysteria fostered by the inability of autonomous thought. And it doesn't matter how much money you make or don't make, whether you're a politician or not, veteran or not, you are a voice and your voice is loud. And you can be loud and you can be peaceful and you can fight administratively to preserve your rights. And I thank you so much, all of you, for having me on today. I'm glad that we're sitting here networking through this multidisciplinary approach so that we can hear each other and understand each other and continue to network on and offline to know for all the American people and people here in Michigan that this is heartbreaking tonight. But remember, civil disobedience. We have had many laws passed for centuries based on civil disobedience. So just remember, business owners, it's scary, but there's a lot of GoFundMes and a lot of fundraisers that will support your fight. It only takes one, and we need that case precedence. And I, for one, will support you if you do not require masks.
Absolutely, me too. And I will tell you, we now have legal case precedent in the state of Michigan. So why would you be afraid? We have legal case precedent. There's no reason for you to be afraid to stand up and stay open. And I will come support you as well. So, all right, thank you so much. I see we have gone over an hour. Time seems to fly when we're yakking on, doesn't it? But this is good information, and people are hungry and starving for this kind of information. They hang on it. We've got still 1,300 people watching and commenting. So this is very powerful and important. So Tom and Kristen, thank you so much for taking the time, an hour out of your evening. Still the weekend, I know. But thank you so much for being with us tonight. I appreciate it. I know we'll be in touch more. I know we'll be doing more of these kind of roundtable type conversations. So thanks for hanging with us tonight. Thanks for being willing to share transparently and honestly from your positions. And we will be looking forward to doing this again very soon.
Yeah, I'm going to
Thank
go
you
check my
for
fantasy football score. So thanks. My mental health escape.
Exactly.
Good luck.
So Ron, what time are we going live with Lana just before we hop off so we can tell everybody?
I don't have the
time yet?
exact time for her. She was checking into her
Okay.
schedule exactly, but we will make sure we do a post on our locals,
Okay.
and we'll also do a post on our pages as soon as we know the time we'll go live, but it will be tomorrow. It'll be on our YouTube channel also. So I'd ask you to subscribe to that YouTube channel, Stand Up Michigan. If you do click on the notifications, then you'll get a notification when we go live. So you don't actually have to know the exact time. You'll at least get a little blip on your phone, and sign up for the email because it's how we connect with you. And we just have to do that because of that. And the great news is at thelocals.com, we are going to be able to go live from there soon, which means we will not have to worry at all about this censorship in the future. So if you join the standupmichigan.locals.com, it's 12 months free. It's going to be all that we need to do to get through a lot of this. And we're going to tie in hundreds of thousands of us together so we can share truthful information with you, and you can post what you want, and we can all work on these things together. But in this next 48 hours, you need to talk to the business owners in your own community. Encourage them to stand up and not comply and not to consent come Wednesday morning. If that all happens, this is going to not be effective. And she's going to realize that she's got to try and find some other tactic. And it gives strength to others when each of us do stand up. Support those that do open. Shop local. Everybody needs some help locally. It's the only way we're going to recover. And remember, we are the solution, not the government.
That's right. And remember, she can't control us if we all stand up.
Yep. So
stand up. Refuse to obey.
We'll talk to you all soon. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you.